In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of American Black and White. I would like to start out with our Black History reflection before we get into the show. Tonight's reflection is about Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks is often remembered as the quiet seamstress who refuses to give up her seat. But that single act was not quite at all. It was the thunderclap. It was the moment an everyday Black woman, grounded in dignity and conviction, disrupted an entire system built on humiliation. Rosa Parks teaches us that alignment between values, courage, and action is not accidental. It is intentional, it is cultivated, it is lived. Her refusal was not spontaneous. It was the result of years of advocacy, community organizing, and deep understanding how systems shape human experiences. She understood culture, she understood communication, she understood power, and she understood that when alignment breaks down, injustice becomes normalized. Tonight, as we welcome a woman whose life's work is rooted in organizational alignment, clarity, and responsible leadership, we honor Rosa Parks, a woman who aligned her values with actions and changes the trajectory of a nation. So I thank you all for listening to that. And now I would like to bring in and introduce you guys to our guest for tonight. Welcome to another powerful episode of American Black and White. I'm your host, Charles Zachary King, and tonight we're diving into the heart of leadership, culture, and human experience inside our organizations. We live in a world where people feel the disconnect long before they can name it, where culture shifts silently, communication breaks down quietly, and performance suffers loudly. And too often, leaders don't realize the misalignment until morale drops, turnovers rise, and trust evaporates. But every now and then, someone steps into the room with the clarity to see that others overlook, someone who can translate the unspoken, decode the cultural tensions, and help leaders understand how generations, expectations, and lived experiences shape the way we work. Tonight, that someone is Stephany Poe. She is a strategist and author, a women's advocate, and a truth teller who sits at the intersection of structure and humanity. She helps leaders build organizations that don't just function, they flourish. And she does it with intention, integrity, and a deep respect for the people who make the work possible. This conversation is about leadership, alignment, and the courage to build systems that honor people. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Stephany Poe. Hello, young lady.
Hi, thank you so much for that awesome welcome and intro. I appreciate that.
Oh, that's no problem. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience before we get going?
Just happy to be here. It's my first time on the show, so I'm here and I'm with you all. So let's go ahead and get to it.
Great. Well, so what I like to start with is like I do with all shows, is I want to get into the human element so our audience can get to learn a little bit more about you. And can you tell us what early experiences shaped your understanding of leadership and alignment?
Ooh, oh goodness, that's a good question. Um, I think some early experiences for me was seeing how leadership would state the importance of company values, the importance of the company mission, my earlier years getting into the work industry and corporate world. But when it came time to actually demonstrate the behavior in action, those two things didn't necessarily align. So the behavior of the leader did not align with the significance or the emphasis given on the significance of company mission or the company principles. So that to me was a very early indicator that something's amiss. Something doesn't make sense here. And that's a bit confusing, especially when you're in your early 20s. And I know there are so many different other early 20-year-olds out there who steps foot into the corporate arena, if you will, and they don't understand that what they're looking at is called workplace politics. And so looking at workplace politics in my early 20s, I didn't know that that was the terminology for what it is that was happening in real time, but how many other individuals don't know. And because they don't know that workplace politics, we're going to go against the status quo. And that's what I did in my early 20s.
So, how did your upbringing influence the way you see culture and communication?
Another great question. So I grew up in Mississippi, in Starkville, Mississippi. Actually, some people know it as Stark Vegas. But I grew up in the country, deep off in the woods, in the sticks, and I grew up with my grandmother. And we started working early. I started my first job was maybe I don't know 10, 11, and I was going with her to clean people's houses. So I started work very early at a young age and I actually got paid for my work. I also had like farmland. So I had to help with my grandmother, making sure I could close off the clothesline, making sure that all of the plants and the weeds were taken up out of the ground and making sure the yard work was taken care of. So I had responsibilities very early on. And I knew that if I did not finish my chores in time, then my dads and uncles and great uncles, they weren't able to come home to food that I had to cook. Because when you grow up in the South, you learn how to cook. um, so I learned how to cook at a very early age. And when I knew about that responsibilities at that young of an age, I knew that it was important for me to communicate then the things that we don't have and the things that we do need, because that was essential to our everyday life and living. So I knew early on to communicate. And plus, my grandmother was a very strong woman. And she always told me that if you have something to say, then say it, because I'm not a mind reader and no one else here is. So if you have something to say, speak your mind. And I did. I wasn't as couth as I am now, but then, oh yeah, I definitely spoke it.
Stephanie, as you mentioned that, I mean, that brings back some memories to me, for me as well. And I just want to follow on that. But also, let me just tell you, I was born and raised as your neighboring state to the east. I was born and raised in Mobile, Alabama. And
Woo!
so, you know, what you just spoke of is some things that I know that these kids today don't understand what it was to be raised in, what the culture and environment was that actually shaped how kids are today that's in a particular age range. When you think about that and the work that you do, how has that experience shaped the way that you work with your clients?
Hmm. It's definitely afforded me a lot of patience. I've always been a patient person, a fairly patient person. I've always spoke my mind too, but for the most part, I've been patient. And I'm grateful because when I grew up in the South, my grandmother would always tell me, you have to let people be people. We don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know how that's going to come across. But you as an individual, you have to always maintain control of who you are and yourself, because you're the only thing that you can control. So let people be people and do them. And as I moved actually west to the city, I learned and saw firsthand that this was not Mayberry. This is definitely not the country. I'm full speed ahead into a whole nother world that I didn't even know existed, because it was a complete culture shock. And people actually welcomed me out west. It was very heartwarming, like no issues, nowhere. And I think with the work that I do now and my upbringing, that Southern hospitality thing is a real thing, because it allows me the grace to extend to other individuals who don't have Southern hospitality or even know what that is or how to demonstrate it in real time. It also allows me the patience to hear objectively rather than subjectively, meaning I am not biased to what's being said to me because I feel like this is a personal thing. No, I'm allowing people to be people. And more importantly, it's also taught me to create the space for individuals to be who they are, where they are in real time, because you still have to meet people where they are. And not everyone has had the same exact experience as I have, nor have I with their experiences. Some are worse and some are better than others, but we're still people. And that Southern hospitality is love thy mother and thy father, honor thy neighbor. That's a real thing. And I take those things seriously. And so that's helped me with peopling. But going into the business section of it, it's also helped me understand that, you know what, workplace politics is also something that's perpetuated by another system in play here. I'm just not sure everyone knows about what that other system is. Or maybe they do in today's climate. Who knows?
So, when did you first realize you had a gift for helping people make sense of complexity?
I know my face. I know my face. I I realized I had that gift. I'd probably say my mid-20s. I say maybe I was 25. Yeah, 24, 25. However, I didn't act upon it. I didn't act upon it because I didn't want to help people with the complexities. And the reason why is because people themselves are complex. And in my thoughts, if only they made better choices, they wouldn't be in the situations that they're in today. That was my thinking in my early 20s. And I also was a young mom. So I had responsibilities of being a young mother. I was also in school full time and I had a full time job. So I didn't really have the patience to extend to help other individuals with their levels of complexities, when in my mind, all they have to do is just say no or change course, change direction, because I'm doing it. And if I can change course, if I can change direction, no matter how hard it is, and I am no stranger to struggle, to grit, to grinding, to hustling, to none of that. I'm no stranger to it. In my mind, if I can do it, if I can get through the toughest of the situations and other individuals can. But it took more of life to hit me where it hurts the most in order for me to extend that growth, because life has an interesting way of teaching you humility, and life also has a very interesting way of pushing you into the positions that you are meant to be in. I'll pause there.
So, what personal challenges taught you the most about resilience and clarity?
Mm, well, for resilience, I lost a sister in April of 2020. She was my older sister, and she was 32 at the time. And she also had two young children. One was 4, and the other one had just turned 11. And I was in school during that time period, obtaining my bachelor's in science, and sales and marketing. And so I was so surprised that I had lost my sister. And she lived in Sunflower County in Mississippi, which is the Delta, not a part of Mississippi I like to travel to, but in this particular case, I had to. And it was the toughest thing, one of the toughest things that I had to do, because me and my sister were very close. We talked every day over the phone for 7 or 8 years in a row, 3 and 4 days. Sometimes we just hear each other breathe over the phone. We were that close. I felt like a piece of my heart just shattered and I lost it. And that's like another part of my heart that I'll never recover. I'm accepting of that now. But I lost her, and in the middle of going to the South to say my goodbyes and to pay my respects to her then husband and their family, there was also a battle happening at the same time for her children. And so it's a long, drawn out, ugly thing. And I decided to come back to the West and deal with that. And I remember I had some family members that said, Stephany, it's okay. If you want to stop going to school, if you want to slow down with what you're doing, you can. It's okay. And in that moment, a split second, I had thought of, I'll stop. But as quickly as that thought came in was as quickly as it left, because I knew that if I stopped, I'd never continue. And so I decided to still go to school and continue to finish with my bachelor's. I didn't take time off from school. I didn't take time off from work unless I had to travel. And I continued to move forward. I was even a part of a nonprofit at that point. I still moved forward. And then 8 months later, I lost another sister. And that was the youngest one. She's 22. And I lost her here on the West Coast. And her death, there was a lot surrounding why, how, and it was so much with it. It was long and drawn out. And unfortunately, my family, my immediate family, and I had front row seats to that. And during the time between the deaths, I had applied for law school. And I drug my feet on applying for law school. And I finally applied and finished up the application. And the day that I buried my younger sister was the same day I was accepted into law school. So it was definitely a bittersweet moment. I would say those deaths in 2020 taught me about resilience, because I still graduated with my bachelor's degree, and I graduated cum laude. And I still went on law school, and I still made different connections and strive for different feats. And at the time, I wanted to understand, why is there red tape in organizations? That's where the law came in. And so law school is an expensive opportunity. And I wanted to take advantage of every opportunity I could. And so the clarity for me came in that moment when I was able to go to law school and learn about the different laws as it relates to corporate compliance. I was able to speak with different judges, federal judges, local judges. I was able to go before Congress and have conversations with different congressmen and women. And so that was where the clarity came in for me, that, you know what, these are just people who are also trying to make a difference while trying to uphold the rule of law at the same time. And they're still people. I mean, we know what the law says. We know what these letters say. We know what specific terminologies mean, but people are still human. And at the end of the day, people are going to revert back to their natural habitat. And that is whomever they choose to be rooted in individually. That's where my clarity came in.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Who poured into you at a young age and helped you to see your potential?
My grandmother. I credit my grandmother, Miss Dorothy Young. So that is a Southern name. My grandmother definitely poured into me very early on. And she told me, sweetheart, there is nothing that you can achieve in this world if you don't want it. And we have spaceships now, so you can reach them stars, because the sky is no longer the limit. So go as far as you want to go. And I said, okay. And that was that. So my grandmother was definitely an anchor for me, big time.
Oh, wow. What does progression mean to you on a personal level?
It is every day, getting up, making the day count. There's a such thing called being productive and then being busy productive. Are you busy productive or are you just productive? Like, what goal did you set for yourself for the day to achieve? Even if you're going through something personal in life that's heavy, and I know life is lifing for a lot of people right now. I'm also people, so I get it. Life is lifing. But every day I make it a point to have a goal. I have 14 different whiteboards on my wall taped up right now. I call it the command center, and there's Sharpie written all over them. It looks like an insane asylum, but it's really not. There's a method to my madness. I write down my thoughts and my ideas and the things that I want to achieve, but I know in this particular moment in time, I don't have the capacity to achieve those. So until I get the capacity, they're going to be right there because I know I'm going to circle back to them. And I don't want to be busy productive. I want to be actually productive because I like to go to bed early because I get up at 3:45, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I like to go to bed before 10 o'clock. But being a business owner, I'm not always afforded that opportunity. So I make sure that I am active every single day doing something, even if it is just journaling, even if it is making sure I made dinner on time. Those little things count. The little things add up, they matter. That's what being progressive on a personal level for me means. And making sure I say my thank yous and be in a space of gratitude for the people that I know and the people that allow me in their space.
So, how has your identity as a Black woman shaped your leadership philosophy?
You know, I've been Black and proud for a long time. I really have. I've been Black and proud for a long time. Oh man. What I will say, in the nonprofit that I was involved in, that really shaped my perspective as a leader and as a Black woman leader because I wanted to understand people and how they see any and everything. I'm fascinated with understanding people. And my role was a spiritual coach, actually, in that nonprofit. And I help women all over the world remove barriers to wellness in their spiritual space. And the women that I spoke with, one thing actually stood out as a pattern. And the pattern was trauma. They've taken on some trauma, whether it's inherited through family or practiced through friends and social norms. They've implemented that into their own personal families with their own children and husbands. And they've now replicated that in the workplace. And now it's coming out in the work. And you also see that women are developing a hard shell, or they're developing or overachieving certain feats that aren't even necessary. And so for me, when I saw that pattern with every woman, and it didn't even matter what race they were, but I did notice as it relates to Black women that it is very heavy with us. And I've also too been an independent, strong Black woman, but I realized that's not always helpful. And it actually does us more harm than good based on my experiences as a spiritual coach in the nonprofit sector. And so I decided that, you know what, I'd rather be a self-sufficient woman because I don't want to give off the impression that I am too strong. Because when you are too strong, instead of getting a hug when you cry, you get a pat on the back. And I don't need a pat on the back when I cry. I need somebody to help me take this pain away or come and take the pain away from me. Do that. And so as a Black woman leader, what I've learned is I need to help others take the trauma away and no longer operate from a place of trauma, but operate from a place of integrity, operate from a place of love, self-love first, and operate from a place that you are comfortable with because it is who you are, good, bad, and ugly, then move forward. That's where it shaped my leadership as a Black woman leader.
Well, I will tell you this. I'm so proud of Black women. because I think that, when we just look at society, culture, everything overall, it's like the brunt of everything that's negative always come first. The positive is always second. But I think most of us, it doesn't matter men, women, or whoever, but I think what most of us have realized is that if it's not for these strong black women, I think everything would have collapsed a long time ago. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
being honest. And so, when I just think of, for the wonderful work that you do, it's like I know that that's got to be rough, but it seems like despite all of that, you still manage to keep pushing and doing what you do. Can you tell us where does the off button come? When do you actually take the time to sit a little bit out sometimes?
Well, um, I think the earlier part of my 20s is when I sat out a lot. And so this part of my life, this is not the time for me to sit out and sit back. All of the knowledge that I've accumulated through education, through life experience, and I'm talking real gritty life experience, and also through corporate experiences, working in the workplace, having different positions, and gaining knowledge from those work dynamics. This is not the time for me to sit out. This is the time for me to share the knowledge that I have with other individuals who want it. And if you don't want it, that's cool. I give it to somebody else because people, we pray for the same things, but only a few of us are in position to receive the prayer that we've asked for. And I am here to share that knowledge and information with other people. Now, to help me take a little bit of downtime, I do batch print a lot of my work. So, for example, anything that I have on LinkedIn, because that's my playground, I've already created that last quarter, 3 months of it. So all of my posts are automatic. They're automatic, they're scheduled, they're working for me when I don't even have to work. It's freeing up time where I can do other things. I have my phone that helps me a lot because it is right now my personal assistant because everything is in my calendar. So I get a reminder to check on certain things. And then I have 1 week out of each month where I close off availability for meetings or anything like that to make sure I can get some self care in there. I can get a day where if I don't want to show up, I don't need to show up. I don't have to show up and I'm not obligated. And so I make the time to make sure I have that self care moments because believe it or not, I'm actually really introverted. And I love being in the house by myself. And I love like being away from everybody all the time. But the work that I do requires me to be outside. So I have to be outside. And so I make sure that I take a lot of time to recharge my energy because I know that I'm going to attract those that are meant to be in my space. And I'm going to be pushed into other people's spaces whom I'm meant to meet and network with. So I have to have an equal balance here. I have to maintain that balance. So right now, I'm just getting started.
Um, can you tell us at what moment in your life shifted your understanding of purpose?
Honestly, I'd say, oh gosh. So after my sisters passed away, my youngest one, 6 months later, I moved to Savannah, Georgia, and I lived out there on the island, on Wilmington Island. I hope a whole bunch of people do not go and visit because the last thing I need is for them people on the island to call and text me and say, "Look what you did." Uh, but what I will say is, I think my purpose it shifted the acceptance of it because I've always had clarity on what my purpose was, but I was just running from it because I didn't want to live in it. Because when you're walking in your purpose, it is another level of commitment. It is another level of accountability, and not just with other individuals, but self accountability. When you choose to operate from a place of integrity and honor, and you are walking in your purpose, that means that you are allowing your faith, whatever your faith is, whatever you choose it to be, you are allowing your faith to guide you, and you are not guiding it. That means each step you take, you don't know if you're going to step in a puddle of water, a cement, or shit. You don't know what you're going to do. You just walking by faith. That's what it looks like. That's what walking by faith looks like. You take one foot down. You don't know what you're stepping in. You just believe it's going to be concrete, and you go put the other foot down, and you're going to keep on the concrete. That's what it looks like. And you have to keep your eyes straight on the goal. That's what walking by faith, to me, my definition, looks like from a visual perspective. So that's also purpose, because you know what your purpose is. You don't know how other people are going to receive it, because one, it's not even for them. And two, not everybody that is coming with you is going to stay on the train with you. So you're going to lose people along the way. And I've lost people along the way, friends, family, associates, co-workers, you name it. I've lost so much. And I remember telling a friend of mine, who's no longer a friend of mine now, we're associates, but I remember telling him years ago, I've lost so much, I don't know how to do nothing else but win. So walking in purpose, I've always ran from it because of the level of responsibility that comes with it. But it wasn't until after I moved to Savannah, and my best friend at the time, she was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. And it took her too fast. I think she passed away like 6 or 7 months later, a month before I graduated from law school. But I went to visit her before she passed. And she was happy. She was happy. She was smiling. She said she had done her purpose. She had completed her life's work, because all she needed to do was change one life. She didn't have to touch the masses. It was just one life she needed to change. And she had done just that. And she was happy with her purpose. She was happy with her life. And she had told me the same thing. Your purpose in life is going to require for you to sacrifice things, because you're walking by faith. Step into it. Otherwise, you're going to continue to get pushed into it. So I just let go and just decided, let go and literally walk by faith. I don't know what's going to happen the next day. I just know that if I continue to show up and show up authentically as myself, hold myself accountable and hold myself to that divine standard that I have, and that's been given to me, then I will be okay, because I know that I am meant to do the work that I am doing currently. I know that I am meant to talk to folks like you and talk to different individuals who will listen to this podcast or look at the podcast. I know that I am meant to share this message with other people, because there are so many people trying to figure it out. And walking by faith is not always easy. It definitely tests you. I'm not a saint by any means. So let me just say that right now. I'm not a saint by any means. So it is going to require a level of patience. And with that level of patience, you hear clearer, you hear more, and you hear deeper, and you know when to stay silent. That's where I found my purpose.
Well, I got two comments here for you here in the chat. Um, I'm not sure. I can't know how to read that name. It looked like Samuk. Also, I don't want to pronounce your name, but he says his condolences for your sisters.
Yes, Sam. She's actually out of Africa. Yes. Hi.
Okay, and then we have this one as well. What are those?
That's
This
why.
is I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's why I put my glasses on, because I couldn't quite see. No disrespect. So I want to make sure that this is understood, that I don't, and I hate saying people's names wrong. So I'm sorry about that. Um, so what's a misconception people often have about your work or your journey?
Ooh. Okay, so about my journey, I don't think people have a misconception of it because they don't know how to necessarily approach me with that type of conversation. I don't think people necessarily know what words to use to say, hey, this looks like what your journey could be. I don't think they do, especially if I go into, oh, I love astrology and numerology. And then I get two different types of reactions when I say those things. One, I get the, oh, it's against my religion thing. Or two, I get the, oh, tell me more. And now it's shifted into, well, can you tell me more about my natal chart? And it takes me about 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is you, how you talk, how you speak, how you walk. This is why you chose your husband. Like, I go into that mode. But for the other part of your question, the misconception about the work, I think the misconception there is that I want to coach everybody, and I really don't. I just want to be very clear about that. I don't want to coach everybody. I already said earlier in this conversation that people still have to people, and it takes a lot of patience with people who are still people. So I don't want to coach everybody. And then, of course, my business name kind of like throws people in, and I get that. And in the beginning of having a business, you know, you have to choose something. So why not choose something that is mine, my name? So I think that's the misconception. And then as I go on to talk about what I do in detail, then I get the, oh, okay. But then I still get the lumped into this is who you are and this is what you do. It's another coach. And I know we got a billion coaches out there. And I know we got a billion coaches around us. And shouts out to all the coaches, but not everybody wants to coach everybody. And vice versa, not everybody wants to be coached. I'm very much aware of that.
What does alignment look like in your own life today?
Walking in my purpose, being truthful when I speak, even when it's uncomfortable. I think that's the biggest part. Speaking truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I have to be very careful on what I say and how I say it because the number one thing is that when I speak to people, I come from a place of love, integrity, authenticity. I never want to offend anybody. I never want to hurt anyone's feelings. But in the same breath, the truth hurts. And the reason why lies are told and believed are because they are so excited. Who doesn't want to believe a 17-foot giraffe is actually purple walking the streets of St. Louis, Missouri? I would love to see that. But the reality is, the truth is, they're not doing that. The truth is, they're either in somebody's zoo or they're in wherever native country those giraffes are from, and they're probably not purple. So the lies are actually more entertaining than the truths. And being truthful when it's uncomfortable, especially in spaces where uncomfortability lives, because we're just in that climate. And I think I made a post about conversations because I'm a skilled communicator. And I made a post in regards to how we got to the point where we are over talking each other in a conversation. No one or little of us are allowing the other person to fully complete their thought and then respond in a thoughtful manner. But many people are responding emotionally first. And not to say we are not validating the emotion, but if you ask me to point out a specific element of a topic and I point out that element and you're coming back to try to get the win on the conversation by hinting at other topics that are of no relevance to what we're currently discussing, what's the point? And so it's uncomfortable truths like that that I have to still speak in. And when we're done talking about whatever the main topic is, I still have to be kind because I want to be kind. And it costs me $0 to be kind to people. I don't even have to pay taxes on it.
Let's transition over to your work in women's advocacy. Now, this is when you and I talked and I was reading your bio, I found that to be, really, really just amazing and just loving that kind of work because, as we try to do many things in many facets around our communities, I think everything starts with that work that you're doing, and that's with women. Um, can you tell us what inspired you to become a women's advocate?
I would say my best friend, she's passed on now. Her name was Ciara Wendy. And at the time, her and I, when we met, we were both state employees. And I was a lean coach and she was a senior lean coach. And if you know anything about lean, then it comes from Lean Six Sigma. So I do have a Lean Six Sigma background. And so at the time of meeting her, I was very tough. And I remember I didn't speak much to people, but my work spoke abundantly for me. My quality was immaculate. My effectiveness, the impact of my work was incredible. It was comparable to my coworkers or then coworkers. But I never shared how I got to the solutions that I got to. I never talked about or walked anyone through my process of completion. I just did it. Here's the work. Now I can go home for the day because I ain't got to see y'all. I ain't got to deal with y'all. I ain't got to talk to y'all. And I don't want to talk to y'all. That was my thing. And so with her and I became friends. And the first thing that I said to her is, I don't mind for us becoming friends. I just don't know how long you're going to remain in my space. And she said to me, that's funny you say that because I would always tell people the knowledge that I have and the type of person that I am, and I'm in your space. I don't know how long I'm going to be here for, but I suggest you utilize whatever you can. And she was also a yogi. So she had a different viewpoint of the world and also about treating others with respect and treating others with kindness and being kind to our fellow woman. And she didn't have any siblings. She didn't have any kids and she didn't want any because she said the world and the women she deals with are her children and her siblings. And so we talked a lot about different struggles that women go through. And she would call me every day. And I think maybe a year after talking to her every single day, I asked her, why are you calling me? I don't understand. Why you keep calling me? Like, I get, we work together and stuff, but we're not even talking about work no more. Like, why are you talking? Like, what do you want? And she would say, just to talk to you. Why don't you want to talk and communicate with people? I was like, I do at work. She was like, away from work. And I'm like, a little busy. And she's like, you making excuses. And so she pushed me actually into the women's advocate role because I didn't want to open up, but she would tell me there are so many women like you who don't want to open up. And you're actually quite funny if somebody talks to you, because I do have a dark sense of humor, but you're actually quite funny if people talk to you and you're so realistic about things. Like some of the stuff you say are just outlandish, but they're so funny and you have a great personality. And you would do the world a disservice if you don't share your laughter through the pain that you've had to endure. Because there's so many other women who have gone through what you've gone through. Don't you feel compelled to help them and share with them? Don't you want to share your story with someone? And I said, well, I'll share it with one person. But one person turned into 10 people. And then 10 people turned into 20 people. And then 20 people turned into 100 people, like over a span of 3 to 4 months. And so that was what drew me into helping other women, because I didn't realize that my stories or the different things that I had gone through in life and I use as examples to convey a message would actually inspire other women to say, you know what, I went through this too, but I didn't know I can do that. I didn't know that I really get through this struggle of life or this particular situation and still go to college. I didn't know that I could do this. Now that I have the resource, now I'm going to go do it. And then it expanded from women to men, and then it just went everywhere after that. So any state that I've lived in, that I've visited, any personnel that I've spoken with in different countries, it just happens that way. And we put together the nonprofit and we became our sister's keepers. And when she passed on, I decided to keep that notion, being my sister's keepers, because I had lost all of my sisters with the exception of one. And I got some stepsisters out there, but I do have one sister remaining by blood. And since I don't have them, every woman that I come across now I'm going to be the keeper of them, because they're now my sisters, whether they know me or not, and whether they realize it or not.
So, what are the biggest challenges women face in today's workplace?
Oh gosh, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it: DEI. And the reason why I say DEI, that's one, because According to Webster's dictionary, there isn't a specific definition for DEI in the Webster's dictionary. But there is a variation of DEI per individual, and it's different. So I think that right there is one of the issues that we're facing, and not just women of color, but also women of non-color as well, because it's being politicized now, and it's so much behind that now, and there's too many feelings involved. So I think that's one. Number two, visibility. We have to work twice as hard, twice as long, and give up twice as much just to be seen in the particular industry we're working in. And even if we're seen, we may not be credited. So I'd say that's the second thing that we're up against. And then the third thing that we're up against is our own self-doubt, that imposter syndrome, that doubt of maybe we can, maybe we can't do it. I don't know because I don't have support. Sometimes you just got to jump off the porch and you got to get out there. So I'd say those three things right now are some of the things that we're facing in the workplace.
So, how do you support women navigating male-dominated environments?
So I'm no stranger to male-dominated environments. Like I said, I did go to law school, and I actually worked in construction for a little bit. Now, I didn't physically do the work, like my hair and nails would not take it. So I didn't do it. But I did manage the communication of a monster project that was over 1 point something or 2 point something million dollars or something like that. And on that project, I was actually the only Black woman in the construction side of working that project. And for the first 30 to 45 days, I was mute. You thought that when you saw me walk into that building to have these meetings with these people every week, that you were curious about why I was there, because I never spoke. I didn't say a word. I didn't talk to anyone. I just listened and absorbed information. But what the individuals in the room didn't realize was that I was not only intelligent, but I knew exactly what I was looking at without them having to train me. But because I didn't speak, they didn't understand that. And they became offended that I didn't talk. And so when they became offended, they started throwing insults subtly. They started questioning my ability suddenly behind closed doors. They started talking to my managers saying that, hey, you need to find somebody else because she's not saying a word, subtly. And then one day, that same manager of mine, who went to bat for me, and I appreciate that, he had to go out of the country. And when he went out of the country for a week or two, I had to run the show. And when it came time for me to sit down and have this meeting, because we had to have an emergency meeting because I closed down a major road, even though everyone knew about it and everybody got communication. I came in that meeting, and the first thing they said is that, well, Stephany, we don't need to talk to you because we know you don't know anything. And another gentleman said, well, Stephany, do you have anything to add? Do you know if this is completed? And I just ran it down like it was a to-do list at a grocery store, as if we picked up everything. And I had blown everybody away at the table, that they were so shocked that they were like, well, Stephany got it, so she can take care of it. What they didn't know is that with those 45 days of me being silent with leadership, I got to know the guys that I was working with and that was doing the work. I got to understand the timeline. I got to understand what work was pending, what work was overdue, and how much it was costing us. I got to understand the numbers. And more importantly, I was building relationships with the guys and morality. So I was able to move things like this when I wanted it. I know who to go to do what. So I give that story because there are going to be women who are working in exact situations like that. So my suggestion to you, because listening is a superpower. I believe it is a superpower now, because when you listen, you hear everything, and you don't always have to be the first one to speak, and you don't always have to be the person to speak. But if you listen, and you listen with intention, because you're coming into those spaces with a purpose, and your purpose isn't to show off your skill set because you got the job. You already did it. You've already shown the skill set. Now what I would suggest is that you expand upon what it is you was hired in there for. Just show up and be yourself because that's what they're looking for. And if they want more, have them show you what that means and how it means. Not just in action, but also on paper too, because coins do make motivation real. I'll leave it there.
Well, here's a comment in the chat. Mic drop. That definitely is well said. And I do think that when women have to be in so many dominated male dominated areas, I think regardless of the qualifications and what she can do, it goes back to I think it was something that you said earlier about why women have to do more than it was necessary. And so it causes women to actually go into this mode of wanting to do all of this extra just to be mentioned in the conversation, primarily when that, as you say, that's really not necessary. And I think that's something where, I think a lot of, owners of a lot of those businesses that are male dominated, they need to rethink about how they're actually operating, because I think that kind of attitude is what's provoking so many women to go out and just do their own thing and form their own coalitions. And I think that is something they need to think about instead of rivaling, to bring them into the fold. What generational differences do you see among women in leadership?
Ooh, so gatekeeping is still a thing. Um, gatekeeping is still a thing. And I think that as the newer generation are coming into the workspace, they're starting to remove that gatekeeping notion, that gatekeeping behavior, because I understand that as a Black woman, when you are going into an establishment that does not necessarily look like us predominantly, you have to walk a certain way, you have to talk a certain way, you have to act a certain way. I do have home training. I am from Mississippi. That is one thing, if anything, my grandmother definitely instilled in me: home training. So when you go into a workplace, you do have to leave your personal at home. And when you're at work, you're at work. You have to conduct yourself a certain way. However, these younger generational individuals that are coming into the workspace, especially the young ladies, they're not gatekeeping. They're sharing that information. They're definitely sharing, hey, this is how I did it. Good luck, sis. Let me know if you need something. And I think a lot of that is starting to resonate amongst other older individuals who have been in the same positions for years. And I think in today's climate, it's starting to show what happens when you stay in a position too long and you lose track of what's actually happening on ground zero. When your ear is no longer to the ground, you're losing valuable real-time information as to what is happening, why it's impactful, and how it's impactful. But the newer generation coming in, they're bringing it with them as they come into these different workspaces. And I don't think organizational leaders really know how to deal with that, manage it, and make it a part of their culture if they want it to. But I do know it's here. And at some point in time, leaders are going to have to figure out how to get past that and how to move around it. But for the generational differences between the different ladies that I'm seeing, gatekeeping, even though it's still a thing, I'm seeing the younger generation moving away from gatekeeping. That is what I'm seeing. And I also am involved in a few other organizations that I'm gonna test this theory. So I'm gonna see what happens with this one in upcoming weeks.
How do you help women reclaim their voice in organizational spaces?
So one, people naturally just talk to me. They naturally gravitate towards me. And that's been something all my life. That's part of the reason why I would run from the purpose earlier in my 20s, because I don't want to hear your problems. I don't want to I don't want to hear your problems. Like, I just want to get my money and go home. And I get it. But with other people in the organization at this big of an age, um, I have coffee with people. Coffee does wonders. When you have a coffee chat with somebody, whether it's virtual or in person, it brings down the guard of the person and allows them to be comfortable in their space, especially if you are an open-minded individual. And so the first thing I do is I create the space for a person to be themselves authentically. So there you can say what you feel you need to say in that moment in time. You can say it. Secondly, as they say it, I usually respond with what's wrong with what you said and why you can't say it in the meeting. Why can't you say it in the meeting? I don't understand because I genuinely don't. It sounded intelligent. It definitely made sense. I understood every term you used to convey your message. And I definitely get the point behind the purpose. So why didn't you say it in the meeting? I usually get the I don't knows or I was scared to. And fear means nothing to me. I tell people all the time, if you don't remember anything else from me, remember that it's illegal to eat people. So what is the worst that could happen? And so that's what I normally tell people. And when I tell people that, they laugh and they say, "You're right, it is." And I said, "Okay. So since we know this, let's go ahead and let's say what it is that needs to be said in the meeting because it's actually valuable information." So I move it back to the purpose of the work that they're doing as it relates to the message that they're conveying because somebody needs that value because it's imperative for the operations at hand. That's how I help women in other organizations find their voice, bring it back to the value.
So, what does empowerment look like beyond slogans and hashtags?
Ooh, that's a great question. Empowerment. Self accountability is one. Because with all the power that we have, there is so much great responsibility that comes with it, and to whom much is given, much is needed. Um, with all the power that we do possess in our conversations, in the tongue, in whatever capacities that we're holding, whatever spaces we're holding, we also have a responsibility to those words. We have a responsibility to our actions. And I believe in being the example for other individuals rather than just leading by it. So I myself can't say I'm a huge self-care advocate, but I'm outside partying every night, drinking my tears away or drinking my sorrows away. I can't say that. That's not self-care. That's actually a coping mechanism. So I lead by example by stating that, hey, sometimes y'all not gonna hear from me for about 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And that's crazy to say. I know you might hear from me in 2 months, but you may not hear from me for a while because I need the time to recharge. You have to know yourself. So empowerment is also knowing yourself as well, self accountability, being self aware, understanding your triggers because you are in control of yourself and yourself only. You can't change anything unless you change yourself first because change happens internally before it happens externally. And so that is what empowerment looks like to me: self accountability, self awareness, and changing internally, being the example.
So, how do you address burnout among high achieving women? Because there are an enormous amount of them.
I have to have, first, I have to paint the visual, give them in real time. This is what your life looks like attorneys, for example. If you ever worked with attorneys, they are fast, 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 on the go, moving, especially if they are a solopreneur or an attorney. If an attorney is a solopreneur, they need whatever it is done a week ago. So you got to get them that information a week ago. And if they're hiring you on for the first time and they're not used to sharing power, which they're not, to their defense, they're not, they're used to doing it all by themselves. You're going to have to help them out by talking with them and prying that information out from them. And so sometimes you have to put a mirror in front of them and be very direct and honest and say, hey, this is what it looks like working on a day-to-day basis with you. This is what I'm seeing. This is how you move. This is how you operate behavior-wise, character-wise, and strategic-wise. Operationally, work is impeccable. It shows. Your results, maybe they're good, maybe they're not. But being honest, and I wanted to say blunt, but there's a way to deliver a blunt message without being disrespectful, demeaning, or degrading. You do have to have some sort of style to it and some kindness there, but it is direct. Put the mirror in front of them. And then I help them paint the visual of where it is they are trying to go. And as we paint the visual on where it is that they're trying to go, then we can put steps in place by taking what they're already doing it and adding some timelines to it, or either fine tuning the process itself to make it more sustainable in a healthy manner so they can avoid the burnout before the end of the day or before the end of the week. As thirdly, have them take a walk away. They've gotten it done. If it doesn't have to get done right now, then you're good. And I usually tell people just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think it's the should part that a lot of the burnout, high achieving or overachieving women are in. They're in the should. Yeah, I can. So I should. No, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
What systems most often fail women in the workplace?
Oh gosh. I think so. That's a broad question. And the reason why is because systems can be anything. Systems can be an actual computer system. It could be the system, meaning the whole structure of the organization, especially if they're a large organization. Or it could be systems as in like society norms, social norm systems. So that's a very broad question. So I'm going to try to tackle all three of those. So in terms of systems as it relates to the computer system itself, the management system that the organization is using, what could be a barrier for women is one, they are not comfortable with operating it, or they're not comfortable with telling other individuals, hey, I need some help, because, you know, we're not that great at asking people for help, especially if we overachieve and high achieving and there's an upgrade and nobody told us about, but we still got to operate in it and we ain't got nobody to talk to because our favorite tech is out on vacation for 3 months. So we got that we got to deal with. I'd say in terms of societal norms, this is the real challenge, because for a Black woman, she is going to have, especially if she's in a very high position, overachieving position, where results are needed. If she's like a VP, she's got a few things happening. She's got one, she's probably the only Black woman sitting on the leadership board. Two, she's also having to let other people in that look like her. But in the process of letting other people in that look like her, she has to trust. And trust is very hard for a high achieving Black woman in a high position to give, because we can't just give it based on the strength that you look like me. We have to give it based on merit. We have to give it based on your capabilities. However, our counterparts may give it just because you look like them. So they got that they got to deal with. It's like, you know, do I want to be ethical or do I not want to be ethical? I don't know. And is this really ethical considering? So that's the broad question. So there's that societal norm that they're dealing with. And then three, in that same societal realm, in that same bubble, is as a high achieving woman or high achieving Black woman in this position, and I'm having to constantly drive results and give results. I want to take a break, but I know that if I do take a break, everything is going to go to hell. So she doesn't trust her team because she runs it with an iron fist. So those are a few things. And then also, when she runs it with an iron fist, she may be afraid that everything is going to fall apart. Afraid is the key thing. So she's operating from fear. And what I tell people who operate from fear, if you're afraid it's going to fall or you're afraid it's going to be taken away, then it's already gone. It's going to fall. It was never yours to begin with. That's what happens when you operate from fear. You're automatically manifesting the worst outcome, and it's going to happen. So that's the societal norms. The other norm or the other system, the structure, um, maybe that's just how the structure is in that particular organization. And they still exist today, regardless of how many people say what on social media or oust whomever in a leadership position from whichever company on social media. These structures are still in place. And so the system that this Black woman is having to operate in the structure of the organization is automatically against her. So she might feel stuck and she's put in too many years to back out now. So she might have to deal with the rest of it for the last 3, 4, 5 years so she doesn't lose a 401k or doesn't lose her retirement. So she's in a rock and a hard spot. Those are the 3 different examples of systems that are hindering women or Black women today in business, from social structure and just the management computer system itself.
Wow. With that being said, and thinking about systems in general, a lot of them were made on traditional values, and some still maintain those values. Do you think it's that kind of system in those situations that actually cause women in particular more issues than was necessary? And especially if they are refusing to change those things?
Um, yes and no. I say yes because if you think about some of these older organizations that's out there, and given the history of the country we currently live in, how long did it take for HR to become a thing? It took HR, I'd probably say, and I made a post about this too. It wasn't until like 1970s or something like that, and forgive me, I don't have the numbers in front of me, that HR really became a thing. But in the beginning of HR, which was in the early 1900s, it was actually a people management thing. And it was actually designed so that the riots would stop or the labor unions would stop because manufacturing companies started to realize that, you know what, people aren't just cattle, they're actually people. Then they need to go home in order to get some rest and come back. Oh, and we should probably put some measurements in place so they don't die too. So that's how HR became a thing in the early 1900s. But it wasn't until much later, and I do mean much later, that HR started to formalize. And it really wasn't until the early 2000s that there was something in regards to a test or an experiment as it relates to culture in the workplace. And it was just an experiment in the early 2000s. We're in 2026 and we're still having this conversation. Nobody was prepared for this. So a lot of those older organizations that are still in play, and I got one in mind, I'm not going to say them because I got one in mind because I remember sitting in their orientation and uh, they're an interesting group because they have a historian for their organization. And as I was attempting to get a job with them and I'm sitting in orientation, went through the history of their company. And I think it wasn't until like 1970 that they hired their first Black person. And they're still around today and they're a huge company. So the structure, I think this is the yes part for that. That's where I think, yes, it holds women back. However, the no part comes in is because change is hard for everyone who isn't ready to accept the outcome. They're not ready to accept the consequences, good, bad, or ugly, that comes with the change. Because when we say, yes, we're ready for change, yes, we want change in the organization, sometimes the change is your job title going away and maybe your income. Sometimes the change is you get degraded and not or promoted, demoted and not promoted. Sometimes that's the change. We're not ready to accept that because it's less pay, that's less everything, benefits, whatever it is. And our bills don't decrease now. Rent's still where it is. As a matter of fact, rent is increasing. So our bills aren't decreasing. So that's where the no part comes in. So I think they're stuck there because it's yes, structure is there, and I commend organizations that are super old, that are going with the times, that are trying to really um, implement social into their workspace, because, or I wouldn't say implement, excuse me, let me say accept social into their workspace, because whether they like it or not, the younger generation is bringing social into the workspace. Thanks to social media, Facebook, YouTube, we see the videos of people getting crazy in different stores, and how it's spreading all over social media platforms like wildfire. We're hearing the stories. We're hearing these horror stories of work discrimination, retaliation, et cetera, et cetera. We're seeing it in real time. So organizations have to deal with the social norms, and if they do not deal with it, and I think today an automatic post went out on my LinkedIn page about conflict crossing the boundary line at work that's beyond words, and it gets physical. All it takes is for someone to pull out their phone, screen it, video record it, post it on a social media platform, and now that's that organization's reputation, a culture of burnout and turnover, because they did not figure out how to mitigate or how to deal with the conflict that was already brewing in the workplace as it relates to the change that they are constantly fighting against, that's going to be here regardless if they're ready for it or not.
Well, a couple of questions ago, when we were talking, Sam put this comment in the chat, and she says that's true. Just she's just learning to let go and not work in fear. Do you have any comments for that?
You know, letting go. What's that saying we say in the South? Let go and let God. Uh, let go and let go. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to let it go, because we also want control. And us as Black women, we are very good at organizing shit. We're very good at a calendar. We're very good at writing things down, making a to-do list, making a grocery list, making a laundry list, making a school list. Whatever list there is to be made, we are good at it. And so, because we are good at it, we also want to make sure that the options, or excuse me, the deliverables on those lists actually get taken care of. And the only way they get taken care of is if we do it. But no, we have to also share that burden with other people as well. And so I get letting go, but the fear part of letting go, I also understand too, because when you fear not letting go, you're going to bring your fears to life. So I would say let go of the fear first before you decide to let go, because when you let go of the fear, everything else will flow.
How can organizations better support women of color?
Don't hire just one Black person on your executive leadership team. Please don't do that. We don't want to be the token Black person at on the leadership team. We appreciate the recognition. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate that. But if you're going to hire us there, give us autonomy. Let us help you bring your mission statement, your organizational principles to reality, because we are who your customers are. We are who your people are in the organization that is doing the work. And we can relate to any and everybody. I don't know if y'all know this, but whenever people are in trouble, no matter what they look like, they always run to a Black woman, and they run to us for help. So we are known for even if it is the craziest situation. A dog can chase a little baby, a little baby down the street. The baby see a Black woman on her porch. That baby is gonna run to this Black woman. So everybody comes to us for assistance. Allow us the autonomy to bring your organization to its glory. Allow us that autonomy. And don't try to silence us, even though behind the scenes, or maybe even in the interview process, you state how much you love our outspokenness. or you state how much you love to hear us conversate and talk about specific topics that are relevant to your external customers, to the operational systems, and the people within the organization. But when we're in the seats and it's time for us to actually show, because we've already told, now we're ready to show, give us the space to do so, the authority and the autonomy. We will deliver results, and the results are going to be beyond your imagination. We will deliver. That's been proven.
Sam has put another question here in the chat. I'll put it on the screen. She says, "What do you think of doing it scared?"
I think that is something that happens when you do things, you do it scared. I've heard that term before. You can do it scared, but as you are going through the entire process, I think somewhere in the middle, the fear leaves because your confidence kick in, because you're like, hey, you know what? I actually know how to code a computer. I actually know how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually know how to strategize and put this thing. Yeah, this is all starting to make sense. I actually know A3 fishbone method. I actually know how to do Lean Six Sigma. I actually know these things. I actually understand corporate compliance and how it applies to the workplace itself. I actually know what a behavior path. So as you're doing the work, in the beginning, you may have the fear and you're going to step into it. But when you step into it, when you're fearful of doing it, that's 1 foot in. When you have the confidence as you're doing it, now both feet are in. That's what I think about doing it with fear. That's the definition for me that comes to mind as I think of doing it scared.
So let's transition over to your book, Perfect Progression. What inspired you to write Perfect Progression?
What women go through in the workplace. I was working in government at the time. And at the time of working with government, actually, that was the year that started like everything for me. That was the year that I lost, I think, 5 family members in that 1 year. And then I was also in a car crash or a car accident that same year too. And so that 1 year was so impactful personally that in my professional space, it showed up automatically because I just didn't have enough time to recover from the family deaths that took place in my life. It was too close. I lost a mentor, I lost a father, I lost 3 uncles, I lost an aunt. So it was like a lot of people. And I'm close to all these people. And so in the process of what's happening in my personal space, I'm also doing my job and I'm doing it well. I'm doing it very well. I'm actually gaining the results of what was needed for the deliverable. And I had no issues with the clients that I was working with, but because again, I did not share my process. I didn't walk anyone through my thought process on how I got to the outcome. I ended up unintentionally and completely unaware that I was creating personalities that were adverse to mine. And so I thought if I showed up and I did my job and I conversated here and there, I keep my head down, I'm okay. People wanted to have more of a conversation in terms of, you know, how are you today and what are you doing? But I couldn't even tell someone how I was doing because I'm grieving. And when I grieve alone, but I have to show up at work. And so I did tell my managers this. And in the process of telling my managers all of this, they still wasn't computing anything. They wanted me to be more personable with my coworkers versus the work that I was delivering, even though I was delivering and meeting expectations. So it just turned into a spiral of things. And I can only imagine what other women have gone through in that same environment and they were not heard. And also, more importantly, it created the culture that we were trying to change in that particular environment. What we were fighting against was actually happening in my very department that I was working under. And I got to see in real time. And unfortunately, me as the experience, this is how it happens when people do not give the space needed, even though it's a personal thing. But when they don't give the space that's needed and the patience that's needed as a leader to help that person reintegrate back into the workplace, then it causes other issues. And then, of course, deadlines and deliverables, because that department was a pretty high one, and pressure from upper leadership on meeting deliverables. And when you're on a team of 20 and 3 to 5 people of the 20 are meeting the deliverables, even though you're one of the 5, the other 15 isn't, you're not sharing the knowledge, so everyone else isn't. So it was just a myriad of things. And then also, as I spoke with other women about what their life looked like in their industry, they talked about similar stories that some of them were actually worse. It was just, I couldn't believe that they could be spoken to in such a manner and leadership wouldn't do anything about it. I couldn't believe that they would allow stuff like that to actually take place. And so that book was inspired based on cumulative conversations of what I had with other women as relates to their workplace, but more importantly, what HR misses in the work environment, how employees leave, why quiet quitting is a thing now, and it's becoming more of a thing. Why people up and quit, and when they quit, and it's theatrics. It's like they finna tell you everything they thought of how much of a piece of shit leader you was. They about to tell it, and everybody finna hear it. You got those type of people who they don't quiet quit; they're loudly quitting. You have those people too. And so I've spoken with a bunch of women over the years, and they told me their stories, and that's what helped inspire the book, because it impacts us mentally, emotionally, spiritually on some levels, physically, and definitely financial.
So, what message did you feel the world needed to hear?
Um, do not be stressed at your job. Life is too short. If you die today, they will post your job tomorrow.
You know,
I know.
I gotta say, see, I love that because I mean, that is like just the flat out truth. You know, okay, you gone. We'll hire somebody else, and they keep it moving, and they keep it moving. I know we're kind of like running short here on time. Let me go to the Black History influences. When we chatted, I asked you who were the most influential people in your life and career, and you mentioned to me Malcolm X, Madam C.J. Walker, and Oprah Winfrey. Can you tell us how have Malcolm X's teachings shaped your approach to leadership and truth telling?
One of the quotes that Malcolm X said, if a man who doesn't stand for something will fall for anything.
All for
And
anything.
will fall for anything. A man who doesn't stand for something will fall for anything. And my father, he would tell me in the South, because see, in the South, for a lot of people that don't know, especially Mississippi, and I know you know in Alabama, our families are next door neighbors, are our next door neighbors too. So I can leave out my grandma's house and go to my daddy house. I can leave out my daddy house and I go to my auntie house and my uncle house. So I'm home. That whole lot is my home. Um, so my daddy would tell me as a kid, Stephany, the only thing you have in this world is your word. So you have to honor that. It doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It doesn't matter what someone else has. You can't take it with you when you go. The only thing you have in this world is your word. So what do you stand for? And I had no idea what he meant when he had told me. And I think I was like 10 years old when he told me. And I repeated it to my grandma. I said, can you believe what my dad just said? He said this, Mama. Can you believe that? And she said, well, what do you stand for? And I said, but Mama, what do you mean? What do I stand for? She says, baby, because you can't just fall for whatever somebody else will tell you. Somebody will tell you that the moon is purple. It's about to fall out the sky. You can't run outside and go figure it out. What do you stand for? So that right there really resonated with me because I really wanted to hold my word. And being in the South, growing up in the South, and you move to the city, um, you don't realize how naive you are until you get to the South. Because I really thought everybody was my friend, and I had to learn. I had to learn that everybody's not my friend, but that's okay. But not everybody is my enemy either, and I don't have any enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose to stand on love and faith and integrity and myself. Like, believe in me. If I don't believe in nothing else, believe in me. And the teachings that I've learned over the years from the South definitely helped me battle different obstacles in this life, because I was able to get past some of the hardest things you wouldn't even imagine. And I'm still here, and I'm not even crazy. Can you believe that?
So, what lessons from Madam C.J. Walker influenced your work as a founder and strategist?
You keep going regardless of what the naysayers say, regardless of what it looks like. What it looks like isn't all what it seems. And just because somebody says no doesn't mean no forever. It means not right now. And you can build, you can do it. You can do it. It doesn't matter. You can get it done. You can't do it over here, go over here and do it. You can't do it over there, go in front of this person and do it. But do it.
So, how has Oprah Winfrey's journey impacted your understanding of storytelling, power, and purpose?
Well, one, Oprah is from Mississippi too. So that's something we share in common. Love that. And secondly, I love how she is able to help everybody. And I remember saying that that's something that I want to do too. I want to help everybody. I want to help as many people as I can touch in this space, in this world, as best I possibly can. And so I saw her, because I used to watch her shows when she was on TV. And so I saw her hold space for people of all backgrounds, of all nationalities, tell their story, even if they are disrespectful, and she didn't even bat an eye. Her hair, that curl stayed in place, one spot. I saw it. She stayed in one spot. So I was like, I want to be like that. How do I keep my hair in one spot? How do I keep that curl right there? And you didn't even see the spritz. It was there. No, but in all seriousness, she also said we all have the same pain. We all have the same pain. We just release it differently. And that is so true, because I talked about how I've lost my siblings. I've talked about how I've lost family members. But there are other people who's also lost their siblings, that's lost their family members. And they've chosen to go a different route. They didn't choose entrepreneurship. Maybe they chose to be outside and on the streets, or maybe they just given up completely. I don't know. But I do know that pain is something that is also a response to something that hurts us internally. And we just release it differently. And when she said that, I started to see other people even more so for who they are. And the grace continues to grow. That way I can share it with others.
And a final question. What do these three figures collectively teach you about alignment, courage, and legacy?
Well, that alignment isn't always easy. Alignment requires for you to make it make sense for yourself and your work, and make it consistent. That's what these three figures taught me with alignment. In terms of clarity, that was the other part that you asked, right? Clarity.
Mm.
In terms of, in
No,
terms,
no, that's alignment, courage, and legacy.
thank you. Courage. Ooh. Courage is that I'm Black too, and as a Black person, they have given me plenty to use in terms of an example or energy to draw on and to step out there in the open as well. And have my dreams be so big, so crazy when I tell other people that it don't make sense and that it scares them, and it scares me a little bit too. But I have the courage to do it. If they can do it in their tough times, then I can do it. They've shown the example of how to be courageous in tough times. I would say that. And then give me the third one again. I'm sorry.
Legacy.
Legacy. It's so funny because I was talking to my oldest daughter earlier today about legacy and the things that I am building right now to have a legacy and leaving them something that is more than just building for yourself. You are a representation of those who gave their lives, who gave up the things that they wanted to achieve for themselves to do it. One of my other grandmothers, she tells me all the time, Stephany, we come from a family who couldn't even read and write. Now look at you. And so she would always say to me, I wish my mother was here to see it because you are the first. I said, but we're still in the first part. I'm just the beginning. There's many of us. So legacy is building a legacy of family that I can share this information with too. Share the blueprint, not just the information, but the blueprint. Because if they don't follow my footsteps, that's okay. You got the blueprint on how to build your own and create your own legacy. So I want to create that and make it lasting and also bring back some wealth back into the family.
So, in closing, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you have for our audience, as well as how they can connect with you via your social media, go to your website, all of those great things you'd like for them to know?
Words of wisdom. If you want drastic changes, you need to make drastic decisions. So get drastic. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course, first and last name, Stephany Poe. I'm also on Instagram, Stephany underscore P is in Paul, OEECC. I'm on Instagram as well. And those are the two places that I'm on. Oh, I'm on TikTok, but I hardly do anything there. I got to figure that out. Progressively Steph, Steph, not F, but Steph is my spelling, Stephany. But that is how you can find me. LinkedIn right now is my playground. I do a lot over there. And then also I'm a part of American Black and White community as well. So I'll be there too. I got that in my calendar so I can check in. So yeah, connect with me on Instagram, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have conversations and I'm available. Oh, my website, sorry, POEECC.com. You can find me there as well. You can also find my misalignment assessment there if you'd like to as well from our organizational leaders that are trying to figure out where their misalignments are in their workspaces.
Well, so before I close, I wanna thank you for being here and sharing the knowledge and the work that you do that reach out to several people in the community, especially your advocacy for women, because I think it's really, really important, and and it shows a lot that it takes a lot in being an advocate, but for the work that you're doing, I mean, it's something that impacts each and every individual, but it's all about how we receive it and what we decide how we want to what we want to do with it. And it's people like you, the superheroes that come here to this show, that people need to know who you are, the work that you do, and why it's important to reach out to you to learn more. I want to thank you for that. And for those of you that are watching on all of our many channels, including our YouTube channels, I would appreciate your support if you would please go to the channel, please subscribe, and enable all notifications where every time we broadcast a show live, you'll be able to get the show, as well as go back and watch our many, many recordings of all of our previous shows. So, in closing, tonight's conversation reminds us that leadership is not just about strategy, it's about humanity. It's about understanding how people move, how they communicate, how they feel, and how they experience the systems they work within. Stephany Poe has shown us that alignment is not a luxury, it's a necessity. When leaders choose clarity over confusion, intention over reaction, and integrity over convenience, organizations transform. People thrive, strengthen, trust grows. As we honor the legacy of Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Madam C.J. Walker, and Oprah Winfrey, we recognize that alignment is also a form of liberation, the freedom to lead with purpose, to build with intentions, and to create systems that honor the people that they serve. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Charles Zachary King, and this has been America in Black and White. Stay grounded, stay intentional, and stay aligned. Oh, okay. So, well, you're back. But anyway, that was my closing argument, closing statement. But is there anything else you'd like to say?
How did I do?
Oh, let me sign off here, and I will definitely give you a call here in just a second.
All right. Thank you so much.